There is a thought in Jungian psychology that speaks to the hidden depths of the human soul, that every person carries an unconscious world within them, a realm of symbols, shadows, and truths waiting to be uncovered. Yet for those who are chosen, this inner world does not sleep quietly. It calls, it stirs, it demands that they step away from the crowd and walk a path that only they can walk. And this is where the paradox of their existence begins. The more they listen to that inner call, the more they realize that solitude is not an accident, but a necessity. To walk alone is not simply their fate. It is the very condition that allows their destiny to unfold. There is a reason why those who are called, those who carry within themselves the spark of something greater, find their journey so narrow. It is not that the world closes its doors to them, but that destiny itself has designed a path that few can walk. The chosen soul feels this from the very beginning, even when they cannot put words to it. There is a sense of being different, of being set apart, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. And when they attempt to merge with the crowd, when they try to fit themselves into the ordinary movements of the many, something inside resists. It feels unnatural, as if the soul itself pulls them back to the road only they were meant to walk. This is why their steps so often lead them into solitude, why the crowd feels like noise, and why their destiny demands silence. The path of destiny is narrow because it does not tolerate distraction. It does not move in the same rhythm as the masses. Most people live guided by comfort, by expectation, by what has been handed down through generations without question. But the chosen one is stirred by something else, something that cuts against the grain of tradition and challenges the safety of conformity. To listen to that call is to step into a way of life that most will not understand, and in that stepping, companionship often falls away. Friends may fade, relationships may not hold, and the chosen find themselves walking roads without company, wondering at times if they are lost. Yet the truth is, they are not lost at all. They are simply on a path so rare, so unique that few can follow. There is a deep paradox here. On one hand, solitude feels heavy, and the chosen one feels the ache of longing for someone who can truly see into their inner world. On the other hand, they know that if they compromise their path to keep company, they will lose themselves. The chosen soul learns through experience that not everyone can walk beside them, not because others are unworthy, but because the path of destiny is too sharp, too steep, too demanding for most. It is a trail that strips away illusions, that requires a willingness to confront darkness and wrestle with truths hidden from ordinary sight. Few have the courage for this, and so the chosen must continue alone. In this aloneness, something extraordinary begins to happen. The chosen one discovers strength they never imagined they had. Without the comfort of the crowd, they are forced to rely on their own inner resources, to listen deeply to the whisper of the inner voice, and to find resilience in the silence. What once felt like abandonment becomes revelation. The narrow path reveals itself not as punishment, but as refinement. It presses the chosen soul into alignment with what they were born to become. It strips them of distractions, purifies their focus, and keeps their eyes fixed on a horizon that only they can see. The world may look upon such solitude and call it loneliness. They may see the chosen one walking in silence and believe they are lost, or broken, or strange. But that is because the world measures life by connection to others, by how well one blends in, by how many voices surround them. The chosen one does not measure life in this way. They know that the deepest connections are not always visible. They know that walking a narrow road is the only way to walk fully with their destiny. They carry within them a secret knowledge that the soul cannot awaken in the noise of the crowd, but only in the stillness of solitude. To walk alone is not to be empty, but to be full of unseen guidance. Each step taken on this narrow road is a step closer to becoming what life intended. And though the chosen one often feels the ache of walking apart, there is also a quiet power in knowing that their solitude is sacred. It means that destiny has marked them. It means their soul has accepted the call. It means they are not wandering, but being led. And so, while the path of destiny may be narrow, while it may strip away the comfort of companions, it also offers something greater than comfort. It offers purpose. That is why the chosen will always walk alone. Solitude has always been feared by many because it confronts us with ourselves. Most people fill their lives with noise, with distractions, with endless chatter, so that they never have to hear the silence. But for the chosen one, solitude is not a choice they make lightly. It is a state that life demands of them. It comes uninvited, but it carries within it a gift that is not visible at first. In the beginning, solitude feels like emptiness, a painful separation from the warmth of others. Yet over time, it reveals itself as the very furnace in which the chosen soul is transformed. Think of the way gold is refined. It does not remain in its raw, unpolished state. It is placed into fire, the impurities burned away, until only what is pure remains. Solitude works in the same way for those who have been marked by destiny. In the silence, in the aloneness, the outer layers that do not belong to the true self begin to fall away. The false identities, the borrowed beliefs, the masks worn to please others, they cannot survive the intensity of solitude. It is here, stripped of these illusions, that the chosen one begins to see themselves clearly for the first time. This is not an easy process. The fire of solitude burns. It forces the chosen soul to face the parts of themselves they would rather avoid. In the stillness, there is no one else to blame, no noise to hide behind. Old wounds resurface, doubts grow louder, and the shadow of fear creeps in. Many run from this confrontation, seeking comfort in the company of others. But those who are truly chosen cannot escape it. They must endure the furnace, because their purpose requires a depth of clarity and strength that can only be born in silence. At first, solitude feels like exile. The chosen one may question why they have been set apart, why others live with companionship while they walk alone. But over time, the exile reveals itself as initiation. What feels like isolation is actually preparation. Life is not punishing them, it is shaping them. It is demanding that they learn to draw strength not from the approval of others, but from the wellspring within. It is teaching them that their worth does not depend on being seen, but on being aligned with truth. And it is giving them the resilience to stand alone, even when the world turns against them. There is something sacred in the silence that solitude brings. When the noise of the crowd falls away, the chosen one begins to hear another voice, the quiet, subtle guidance that was always there but drowned out by distraction. This is the voice that speaks of direction, of destiny, of the next step to take when the path is unclear. In solitude, the chosen one learns to listen to this inner compass, to trust it even when it makes no sense to others. This trust becomes unshakable because it was forged in silence, tested in fire, and proven in the absence of external support. As the transformation deepens, the chosen one discovers that solitude is not empty at all. It is alive, filled with unseen forces that accompany them on their journey. The very silence that once felt unbearable becomes their closest companion. It strengthens them, deepens them, and prepares them for the tasks ahead. And while others may see only a solitary figure, the chosen one knows they are walking with something much greater than themselves. Their solitude is crowded with purpose, with vision, with the whisper of destiny itself. By enduring solitude, the chosen one is given a gift that cannot be bought or borrowed. They gain clarity of mind, depth of spirit, and a strength that does not crumble under pressure. They emerge from the furnace of isolation not weaker, but unbreakable. This is why their solitude is not an accident. It is the very ground of their transformation. Without it, they would remain untested, unshaped, unready for what life has called them to do. With it, they become aligned with their true self and capable of carrying the weight of their purpose. The chosen must understand that solitude is not their enemy. It is their teacher, their sculptor, their fire. And though the process is painful, though it feels at times like being torn apart, it is through this breaking that the soul is made whole. It is through this silence that the true voice emerges. It is through this furnace that the gold is revealed. That is why the chosen will always walk alone. To be chosen is to carry a depth that often feels impossible to explain. The world, in its rush toward comfort and conformity, struggles to understand those who see beyond the surface of things. When the chosen one speaks, their words may sound heavy, too serious, too unfamiliar for ears accustomed to the ordinary. When they dream, their visions seem unrealistic or strange to those who have settled for what is safe. And when they walk with quiet determination, their steps are misread as pride or detachment. This is the inevitable experience of the chosen soul. They are misunderstood, not because they are wrong, but because their perspective is too rare to be grasped by many. There is a loneliness in being unseen for who you truly are. The chosen one often feels the sting of being judged, misinterpreted, or dismissed. They may try, especially in their early years, to explain themselves, to bridge the gap, to prove to others that they are not arrogant or aloof, but simply different. Yet no matter how much they try, they encounter the same wall. Most cannot understand what it feels like to carry the weight of a vision that does not belong to this world. This misunderstanding becomes a constant reminder that their path cannot be shared in the way they wish. But what first feels like rejection is, in truth, protection. The chosen one is not meant to be fully understood, for their purpose must remain untouched by the expectations of the crowd. If everyone could see into their soul, if everyone could grasp their vision, it would be diluted, compromised, or even resisted. Misunderstanding serves as a shield, keeping the chosen one apart, ensuring that their uniqueness is preserved until it is time for it to be revealed in its fullness. What others call strangeness is often the very mark of destiny. This does not mean the chosen one is without pain. To walk through life being seen through distorted lenses is a burden. They are told they are too intense, too distant, too different, and these words can wound deeply. Yet over time, they come to realize that the misunderstanding of others cannot define them. It is not their task to convince the world of who they are. It is their task to remain faithful to their path, regardless of how the world interprets it. In this realization, the chosen one begins to find strength in their solitude, seeing it not as rejection, but as confirmation that they are walking a road not meant for everyone. The chosen soul learns to carry this quiet dignity. They no longer fight to be understood. They no longer bend themselves to fit into spaces too small for their spirit. Instead, they allow misunderstanding to do its work, keeping them separate from distractions that could weaken their focus. What once felt like isolation becomes a kind of sanctuary, a protective space where their vision can grow uncorrupted by the noise of opinions. And though the ache of longing to be truly seen never fully disappears, the chosen one accepts that such recognition is not meant to come from the many, but from the few who are capable of seeing beyond the surface. There is also wisdom hidden within being misunderstood. It teaches the chosen one to rely not on external validation, but on the inner certainty of their calling. When the world misreads them, they are forced to anchor themselves in their own truth. They learn to trust the quiet assurance that comes from within, rather than the unstable approval of others. In this way, misunderstanding strengthens them, turning what feels like rejection into resilience, and what feels like loneliness into a deeper connection with their own soul. Over time, the chosen one begins to see the gift in being different. They recognize that their depth, though misunderstood, allows them to see what others cannot, to sense what others ignore, to carry light into places most avoid. And while this difference sets them apart, it also marks them as necessary. They are not here to be like everyone else. They are here to bring what no one else can. The very fact that they are misunderstood becomes evidence that their path is uncommon, and therefore sacred. To carry such depth is to accept being set apart. To speak truths few will grasp is to accept silence in return. To see visions too vast for ordinary eyes is to accept walking roads where others cannot follow. It is painful, yes, but it is also the highest privilege. For it means that life has entrusted them with something rare, something that cannot be shared easily, something that must be protected until its time has come. That is why the chosen will always walk alone. To be chosen is to be entrusted with a responsibility that no one else can carry. It is a weight placed upon the soul, a burden that cannot be shared, no matter how much the chosen one may wish it could be. Others can walk beside them for a while, offering comfort or encouragement. But when the moment of truth arrives, when destiny calls for sacrifice, vision, and unwavering strength, the chosen stands alone. This is not because they reject others, but because their task is singular. No one else has been given the same calling, no one else has been prepared in the same way, and no one else can bear the exact weight meant for their soul. The chosen often wrestle with this reality. They feel the temptation to lean heavily on others, to ask someone to understand, to help carry what feels unbearable, and for brief moments, it may seem possible. But soon enough, life reminds them that their responsibility cannot be transferred. It is theirs alone, and to try to give it away is to weaken its meaning. Every chosen soul must learn that destiny is not a collective burden. It is a personal covenant between the individual and the life that entrusted them with purpose. This covenant demands sacrifice. It demands that the chosen one face trials that others will never experience. The pressure of expectation, the weight of vision, the endless internal battles, these cannot be explained in ways that others will fully grasp. Even those who love them most may not understand. And so, the chosen walks forward with the awareness that their responsibility will always set them apart. It is a solitary road, not because people abandon them, but because the burden itself cannot be divided. Consider the way a mountain climber must face the peak. Companions may travel with them for much of the journey, but the final stretch, the most dangerous and demanding part, is faced in solitude. There, every step depends on their own strength, their own focus, their own resolve. The chosen soul experiences life in much the same way. When the summit of their purpose draws near, no hand can guide them, no voice can take the strain away. They must climb with what they have been given, and in that climb, they discover the depth of their strength. This is why companionship often feels temporary to the chosen. People may appear along the path, some staying for a time, others drifting away quickly. But the chosen one comes to understand that even the strongest connections cannot carry the weight of their responsibility. It is not a flaw in others, nor a punishment for them. It is simply the nature of being chosen. Responsibility binds them in such a way that their journey will always require separation. Their soul must carry the vision, the trials, and the sacrifices alone, because only they were prepared for it. There is also a profound wisdom in this solitude. If the responsibility could be shared, it would lose its power to shape the chosen one. It is precisely because the weight is theirs alone that it transforms them. The pressure carves them into who they must become. The loneliness forces them to develop strength within themselves, rather than depending on what others can give. The isolation teaches them resilience, trust in the unseen, and clarity of purpose. These qualities are not luxuries, they are necessities for the path ahead. At times, the chosen soul may wish it were different. They may look at others, surrounded by support, and feel the sting of envy. But deep within, they know their burden is sacred. To carry it alone is not a curse, but a sign of the depth of their calling. It means that life has entrusted them with something no one else was strong enough to bear. It means that their journey has been written in such a way that only their shoulders can carry the weight, only their spirit can endure the fire, and only their heart can hold the vision without breaking. This is not to say the chosen one walks without moments of doubt. They will question themselves, wonder if they are enough, and at times, wish to lay the burden down. Yet every attempt to abandon their responsibility brings them back to the same truth. It was never meant for anyone else. And though it feels heavy, though it isolates them from the comfort of sharing the load, It is through this very responsibility that their purpose is fulfilled. To accept this reality is to embrace the solitude that destiny demands. To walk forward with the weight of responsibility, unshared and unbroken, is to live in alignment with the call of the soul. The chosen one learns to carry their burden with dignity, knowing that while others cannot understand its full weight, it was given to them for a reason, and in carrying it, they are not only walking their own path, but shaping the world in ways unseen. That is why the chosen will always walk alone. The chosen one is not guided by the noise of the world, but by something far more subtle. While the crowd chases after trends, opinions, and fleeting desires, the chosen soul feels compelled to listen inwardly, to follow a quiet voice that others cannot hear. This inner call does not shout. It does not force itself into attention with drama or spectacle. It whispers faint but steady, asking for silence and trust. And this is precisely why the chosen one must walk alone. Surrounded by too many voices, the whisper would be drowned. Immersed in too much noise, the guidance would be lost. Their solitude becomes the very condition that allows them to remain attuned to the voice within. Most people cannot tolerate silence. They fill their days with endless distractions because they are afraid of what they might hear if the noise fell away. But the chosen one is different. Though silence feels heavy at first, though solitude can ache, they come to recognize it as the only way to truly hear the guidance meant for them. The inner voice does not speak in the language of the crowd. It speaks in the language of symbols, intuition, dreams, and sudden knowing. To catch it requires patience, stillness, and a willingness to separate from what everyone else is chasing. This is not easy. The world is loud, insistent, and always pressing its opinions upon the individual. The chosen one feels this pressure deeply. The temptation to conform, the pull to follow what is popular, the fear of being left behind if they do not move with the masses. But something inside them resists. No matter how hard they try to silence it, the inner voice keeps calling them back, away from the noise, back into the solitude where true direction can be found. And though it may leave them misunderstood, though it may isolate them, they know that ignoring the voice would cost them their soul. There are moments when the chosen soul doubts this path. They wonder why their life does not flow like others, why their journey seems harder, why they are asked to walk in silence while everyone else enjoys the comfort of the crowd. But each time they resist the call, each time they attempt to drown it out, life turns them back towards solitude. The voice within will not allow them to betray themselves. It reminds them that they are not here to follow the crowd, but to live out a destiny written only for them. And destiny does not speak through the shouts of the world. It speaks through the whisper of the unconscious, the intuition, the inner knowing that can only be heard when one walks alone. Listening to this voice requires courage. It often asks the chosen one to take steps that make no sense to others, to make choices that look foolish in the eyes of the world. Friends may shake their heads, family may question, and society may judge. Yet in the silence, the chosen soul knows the truth. This is the way they must go. And though the path feels narrow, though each step demands faith, there is also a deep peace in obeying the inner call. For the chosen one understands that while the crowd follows noise, they are following something eternal. Over time, this listening becomes a way of life. The chosen soul no longer resists solitude, but embraces it as the sacred ground where their direction is revealed. They no longer fear silence, but recognize it as the space where the unseen speaks. They no longer measure their steps by the opinions of others, but by the alignment they feel within themselves. And this is what makes their journey so different. They walk not by the world's compass, but by an inner compass that never fails, even when the road appears uncertain. This way of living shapes them in profound ways. It gives them a strength others cannot understand, for their foundation does not rest on approval, but on truth. It gives them resilience, because their direction is not borrowed, but discovered within. And it gives them clarity, because while the world is tossed about by changing voices, they remain anchored in the stillness of their own soul. Their solitude, once seen as weakness, becomes the very reason they can carry their destiny without wavering. The chosen one comes to realize that to walk alone is not to be forsaken, but to be preserved. It is not abandonment, but alignment. And though the crowd may never understand, though the noise of the world may never cease, the chosen soul knows that the whisper within is worth everything. To lose that voice would be to lose themselves, and to remain faithful to it, even in solitude, is to remain faithful to the truth of their existence. That is why the chosen will always walk alone. Loneliness is often the shadow that follows the chosen one. It creeps in during the silent nights. It lingers when the road stretches endlessly with no companions beside them. At first, this loneliness feels unbearable, like a punishment. The heart aches for someone who understands, someone who can walk step for step, someone who can share the burden of silence. But over time, the chosen soul begins to see that loneliness is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a deeper connection, one that cannot be found in the company of people, but only in the depths of the soul. What seems like loneliness is, in truth, the stripping away of distractions. When the chosen one is separated from the noise and the constant pull of others, they are forced to look inward, to face what lies beneath the surface. At first this feels like isolation, but slowly it transforms into something sacred. They begin to sense a presence that does not abandon them in the silence, a quiet companionship that does not demand words or explanations. What felt like emptiness reveals itself as fullness, and the chosen soul understands that they are not truly alone. This shift is not sudden. It comes through struggle, through nights of questioning, through moments of despair. But in those very moments of despair, something awakens. The chosen one realizes that loneliness is only the surface of solitude, and beneath solitude is a connection to something eternal. They discover that the silence is not empty, but alive. It carries whispers of wisdom, flashes of insight, and a depth of peace that the crowd could never offer. It becomes clear that the solitude they once feared is actually the bridge to communion with the unseen, with the source of their calling, with the truth that sustains their journey. Many seek to fill loneliness with noise, with people, with endless activity, hoping to drown out the ache. But the chosen soul cannot do this. Their loneliness is not meant to be erased, it is meant to be transformed. It is a doorway, and to walk through it is to find that they were never abandoned at all. In the deepest silence, they find alignment with life itself. They begin to sense that their path, though narrow and solitary, is guided by hands they cannot see. Their loneliness becomes a space where the eternal speaks, where the unconscious reveals its symbols, where the soul finally comes into dialogue with itself. The chosen one learns that the very thing they feared, walking alone, is what grants them access to this connection. If they had been surrounded by constant companionship, they would never have heard the voice within. If they had been embraced by the crowd, they would have lost touch with the whisper that guides them. Their solitude protects them, not by isolating them forever, but by leading them to a deeper kind of companionship, one that no human presence could provide. There comes a point when loneliness begins to lose its sting. It does not disappear entirely. There will always be moments when the chosen one longs for someone who understands. But the ache softens when they realize that they are already connected, not in the shallow way of ordinary companionship, but in a sacred way that unites them to the whole of life. They feel accompanied by the eternal, supported by the unseen, and carried by a strength that is not their own. This is the paradox of the chosen soul. They walk alone outwardly, yet inwardly they walk with everything. And in this realization, something extraordinary happens. The chosen one no longer seeks to escape their solitude, but to honor it. They come to see it as the space where their soul breathes freely, where their purpose is nourished, where their connection to the eternal is renewed. What once felt like loneliness now feels like intimacy with life itself. And though others may look at them and see someone walking alone, the chosen one knows the truth. They are walking in union with the deepest source of existence. This is the quiet secret of the chosen. They do not deny the ache of loneliness, but they no longer fear it. They let it transform into connection, into alignment, into a communion so deep it cannot be put into words. And once they taste this truth, they would never trade it for the comfort of the crowd. For they know that in their solitude lies the very essence of their destiny, and in their loneliness lies the path to their deepest connection. That is why the chosen will always walk alone.